Hi, welcome to the PhD Journey podcast, episode 6, Marilyn.
Woohoo!
Here
We are moving right along.
we are. We're going to talk about thriving beyond surviving today. And it's going to be a really good conversation that I think hopefully our listeners will learn a lot from today. We're just going to do something a little different. We just want to introduce ourselves a little bit more formally on this podcast. So, as we grow on this platform, you'll see some new things that maybe some changes that as we get more confident and professional in this. But I'm Dr. Sarah Gordon. That even just saying that, that's very new.
And
So yes,
love the sound of it.
yes. And this is my colleague, Dr. Marilyn Ward.
Hello.
And we're the co-founders of the PhD Journey Unplugged. And we're also recent graduates of Concordia University, Chicago. And we got our doctorates in leadership in health and human performance. And so as we graduated and we started applying to universities, we would both like to be adjunct professors at universities eventually, still working through that patience and pause. We decided to launch a podcast. And we wanted to take our experiences, our knowledge, and our academic training from our doctoral journey and start this podcast. Share our voices on topics related to wellness, healthy aging, and purposeful living. So, a little bit of a leap of faith and wanted to have fun with it and just be creative with it. And we're having a great time doing this. A little
Absolutely.
bit about myself. I bring a discussion to with a back to our podcast. I bring to the discussions a background in psychology. My research was focused on exercise motivation with older triathletes and older athletes. I'm currently a freelance writer with Outside Interactive for Triathlete Magazine, published poet, photographer, and dabble in multisport. Love open water swimming.
Yeah.
And Dr. Ward is the founder of No Excuses LLC, a leading health and wellness coaching company. And you have over 25 years of experience in wellness, leadership, and motivational coaching. It's impressive. And you also bring to these discussion 6 years of dedicated service in the U.S. Air Force.
Thank you.
And you bring, when I listen to you each week, I admire how you bring that into our discussions and understanding discipline in terms of setting goals and living a healthy life. And we'll talk about self-discipline a bit today. Now, your research focused on enhancing the quality of life and increasing longevity in older adults. And we both kind of just coincidentally focused our research on healthy aging with older adults. So that's a nice bond that we share, even though we approached our research a little differently.
Yeah.
But we're both passionate advocates for helping others thrive towards better health, and we value connections deeply with people within our communities, with our audiences, and we truly strive to empower individuals to take charge of their health, make lasting changes. We know it's hard. But we like to be feel like we'll be instrumental in that process and transform your lives from the inside out. So thank you for letting me introduce ourselves today and take a little time to listen to us and get to know us a little bit better. So today, again, we're going to talk about thriving beyond surviving.
That's right.
And this is an important topic because many of us are used to living in a certain way. And I
Yes.
know for myself, I was in survival mode for many, many, many years. And it wasn't until I kind of took this leap of faith and go back to school and start to study something I was passionate about that I started to see that, life can be lived lived in a different way with more purposeful intention. So I'm going to give it back to Marilyn, and she's going to just kind of introduce, like, what does it even mean to thrive versus survive, uh, and how it's impacted your life.
Yes, I think so. Thriving beyond surviving for me, it's it's not just getting by, right? So to survive, we just are getting by. To to thrive, we are living with intention, resilience, with purpose. And I think, like, I knew for me, like the research for my study, it wasn't just for my participants. I knew that it was going to be something I was going to want and use as I got older, like I'm approaching, 50. And so I was like, I don't want to just survive anymore. I too want to thrive. So when I was researching quality of life and longevity, it was like, okay, because I know I'm going to need this. And I think we talked way back when, or when we first started, about how I wish we would talk about, and we're going to talk about it later about successful aging. I wish they would talk about it in early years. I wish they would,
Right.
and it was hard to teach elementary students that, and maybe even high school, but college, I feel like we should start talking about it in our 20s and 30s instead of waiting until our 50s and 60s to worry about, oh, gee, now I'm already old. Now what do I do? But instead, so I do think that thriving is a thing we talk about now because this is a different time. We're
Mhm.
not where I think in the past it was all about survival, but now I definitely think it's all about thriving as we age.
Well, it's interesting because the research shows that people are living longer lives, but
Yes,
they're not necessarily living those added lives or years in their life with good health.
right,
So, one of the goals is, well, if we have the opportunity to live longer and perhaps, modern medicine and, there's lots of factors to why we're living longer. We want to have a good quality life in those added years. We want to be able
right.
to continue to be physically active and to feel good and to, enjoy those years. So I think I agree with you. Like if we started having conversations earlier on about, your 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s and beyond, those can be years of where you thrive and you're not just surviving. We
Yeah,
both know from our research, my research was with older triathletes, 65 and older, and the triathlon is three discipline sports of swimming, biking, and running. And so they're living very highly physically active lives at a
yeah,
time when the narrative traditionally has been different,
right. Yeah,
right? Time to slow down and, become more
yeah,
sedentary. And so I think you're right. I think perhaps we chose our subjects for our study to build on a narrative to show that, aging can be you can live differently, in the later years of
absolutely.
your life. So,
And I always think back to one of my, I don't know if it's the first Ironman or the second, but you know how they line you up in the transition area according to your age. And I remember so I was like on the 40 to 50 side, and then the 60s and 70 ladies were on the other side. And when I came back from the swim, their bikes were already gone. I was like, okay, ladies. So I'm like, fitness has no age limit. It's all individual. So I was like, these ladies obviously were thriving. I felt like at that point I was surviving. But it was just interesting to see that they were, strong, competitive women out there
Mhm.
doing it in their 60s and 70s, where most people, like when I was looking at, like my grandmother was very active, but my great grandmother, it's like, all right, I'm 60, sitting on the rocking chair now. Not today. That is not how
Well,
things are going today.
it's true. I mean, so there's a term called ageism. I don't know if you when you
Oh,
wrote your literature review and your research, but ageism is a stereotype that as you get older, the expectation is that it's more about decline.
right.
And we know there's physiological changes in our body. We don't live forever. So we know something called sarcopenia, where your muscles start to change and your body does start to change as you get older. But we also know that physical activity can help counteract some of that, strength training and aerobic. And, there's even research out there says, higher intensity physical activity is, beneficial. Now, obviously, you have to weigh the risks of injury. But I just think that's very interesting that this traditional narrative on aging
Right.
is very different than what we found in our studies and what people are showing now, who
Oh, for
are
sure.
participating in sports, participating in triathlon. I had a very similar experience when I was lined up for a half Ironman. And I was standing next to a lady. I knew she was older than me, but I didn't realize she was like in her 80s.
Oh my.
She finished, I checked after the race. She finished an hour earlier than me.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean,
That's amazing.
you're right. There's no age limit, and when we focus on thriving and
Right.
not just surviving. And I think that's the key is how do you change that mindset?
Right. And I think and in terms of the PhD journey, I think it's the same, did we were, I think it again, the ebbs and flows of it, you part of sometimes I felt like I was surviving, other times I felt like I was thriving, but it's all a matter of mindset too. I believe if you act like you're in survival mode and you're like, it just feels like you're struggling, or you take the bull by the horns and you're like, no, we're going to do this. I'm going to get it. I'm going to, you know, fail forward, keep moving. It puts you in a mindset of thriving. And
Yeah.
so, and it goes with every aspect of life.
But there's kind of a mental health component to it because we have to find ways to enjoy life.
Yes.
Because I found like in my research, these older triathletes were really enjoying what they were doing. They were having fun with it, sense of camaraderie. So especially as we age, we finding things that we enjoy, and have passion. It's a much different mindset than like just, you know, being in a survival mode situation. Now, I'm not trying to minimize, we all are in different places in our life. And sometimes you have to be in the survival mode to get through
Oh,
hard
for
things,
sure.
but you can move through it too to more of a thriving mindset, like you
Right.
were saying. Yeah.
Yep. I definitely feel like it's up to the individual, kind of like how we talked about last week, just changing that mindset. So, just so you just have different outlook on life and
Mhm.
outlook on the situation. And if you keep putting out that negative energy, you're gonna keep getting negative energy. But if you have that positive outlook, have the gratitude, like, thank you for putting me through this. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
stronger
right?
because of it. So it really does make a difference in from surviving to thriving.
But how do you
Um,
remember that, Marilyn? Like when you feel like there's just so much, especially as a doctoral student or, anybody, whatever you're going through in your life, how do you change that mindset? I mean, I think it takes some practice, some reminders. I have a note here about small steps towards becoming more aware of your existence, and you always say,
yes.
take the small steps. So it's
Yep.
hard to change that mindset. I have to tell you, I know personally, sometimes
It
I
it
forget
is.
to say, "Oh, I'm grateful for this hard work
Yeah.
today."
And and for me, I guess it's when like I did it to myself probably today. So we came back off this crazy vacation with the little children, well, young children. Here I am, almost 50, I'm running around with 12-year-olds. I'm climbing stairs to the water slides. I'm going on crazy, speedy roller coasters. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I was doing things at first, I was like, okay, this is survival mode because I was like, how am I going to do it? But then I thought, you know what? I look around and I see other people my age up there, they, grandparents, and they're on these rides. I'm like, I'm just going to enjoy it. I know it's not going to kill me, at least I hope, no heart attack. But I had to and then coming off the vacation, so exhausted, so wore out. And I was like, today, do I skip the gym? And I was like, you know what? No, I so I have to give myself a pep talk. And I think that's where the practice comes in, where you have to give yourself that pep. It would have been very easy for me to hit snooze, sleep in till 8 or whatever, till I felt like waking up. But I too am on my own journey of wellness. And I was like, I don't want to. I want to be able to share how I can overcome those obstacles when they come my way. And because I do want to continue thriving as I age, because it'd be so easy to sit back, relax, and be a blob on the couch.
Well, it takes certain amount of self-discipline to
Yes.
do that. So kudos to you for getting
Yeah.
up and going. It's hard. It's hard. Habit changing is hard.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that it's really important to communicate to people, don't beat yourself up on it. It takes time. Um, but putting in a process that helps you be successful or setting up systems, little things like laying out your clothes the night before,
Yes.
I put my socks in my shoe and I lay out my workout stuff and I have it nice and
Everything.
neat. And so when I wake up, I don't have to think about those things. Although in all transparency, this morning I did not go to the gym. I was supposed to work out and I just didn't feel well. So also sometimes you need to rest.
Right. You
But I
do
will
need to
go
listen.
tonight.
Yeah, you need to listen to
And
your
I'm
body.
blushing because that's the truth. I did blow it off this morning, but I
Oh,
will
hey,
go
but at least
tonight.
we can say it. But we talk about it, right? So you could say
So,
it, you're aware.
excuse
So being
me.
aware is also part of
Yes,
the
I was
problem.
aware.
I think another question too, I like people to ask themselves is how bad do you want it? Right? How
Yeah.
bad do you want the PhD? How bad do you want the physique, the body, whatever that body shape may be? How bad do you want the goal that you set out for?
Yeah.
And that is what you have to keep in your mind, like, that end result. What is it that I want? And I know that wanting that bad enough is going to help keep me on the right path.
Hmm.
So I think that's something that we need to remember.
Today we're having different technical difficulty. What is the thumbs up?
I don't know. We got a thumbs up.
But you know
I
what? Somebody just gave you and me a thumbs
was
up.
going to say,
Good
is somebody
sign.
listening to our podcast that we don't know?
That's a very good sign. Well, I'm not quite sure how to fit this in, but I think it's important to talk about. When I was studying and getting, thinking, preparing for this episode today, um, are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yes, I didn't really use that much in my research study, but I'm
Okay.
familiar with the
Well, I think the
process.
the goal is that as we try to move beyond surviving and survival mode and learning how to thrive in our lives and enjoy our lives, and we want to move towards being what's called self-actualized. So we want to get to a point in our lives where we really become the person that God intended us to be, and just to embrace your gifts and to enjoy life. But we have to move through different steps to get there. And so when you're at this like basic physiological need of trying to just, it's a very serious level of survival. And, whether you're struggling with addiction or wherever you are in your life, we're not saying that these are not serious things that you have to move through in terms of feeling a sense of security and having food and shelter and all these things. But our hope is that if there's anybody out there listening to us and is struggling with any of these serious issues, you always reach out to other people for help. So
Yes.
then you can move to a next stage of safety. And Maslow talks about in terms of so you go from these physiological needs of just survival to safety needs where you feel safe in your environment, where you have employment, where you're taking care of your health. Then, when you feel comfortable and you have those things in your life, you can move on to what's called love and belonging, where you can build friendships and relationships and have connection with family members and people in your community. From that, you build a sense of self-esteem, more confidence, and then you get to the self-actualization. Now, it is not a straight path up. And I always talk about the path. We take turns in that path and we all struggle. And we bring things, individual, unique things from our childhood, from our life experiences. But the goal in Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that we should get to a point in our lives through small changes, through self-discipline, through hard work where we
Right.
can enjoy our lives, where we can love what we're doing, when we have meaningful relationships. And so I thought that was important to bring that into this discussion.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think
It,
about all that? I know it's a little bit more, serious theory, but
no, but I think it fits well, and I think it's probably a good step. It reminds me, it's kind of similar to the 5 stages. Well, now they've changed. It's the 6 stages of change, where you're contemplating that change to the, to your final maintenance step. You want to take these steps, and as you take each one, you're getting better and better. You're growing and you're becoming more. But I like the one where it talks about the loving and belonging,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so important to feel that love and to feel
Mm-hmm.
like you're a part of something else or part of something bigger than just yourself. So very important, going from that surviving to thriving, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and people go through different things in their lives, whether it's just a PhD journey or, trying to get a degree, another type of degree, that's pretty demanding, or you've had some type of financial setback in your life, or somebody is, struggling with health issues. Like we all are dealing with different things in our lives. And so I don't want it be like, oh, thriving, like, everything's great. Life is
Right.
always great. Because it isn't always like, perfect. But we can always look for little opportunities in these things. Like last week, we talked about overcoming obstacles. Um, we can always look for maybe, I would say, kind of like the silver lining for something positive in whatever it is that we're going through, where we can feel like we're thriving and not just surviving. And it could just be a simple talk to a stranger, you know.
Right. I was gonna say
How
it.
are
It
you
could
doing
be
today? That might make you
even
feel,
small. Yeah. There's a
no,
gentleman when I go for a walk, depending on which route I go in the morning, and I love him. First of all, he's got like shorts and a tank top, but then he wears like this, like a cowboy hat, but like the wicker one, and he's always like, "Well, good morning, beautiful. You look fabulous today." He doesn't know me and I don't know
that's a
him,
great example.
but I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I
Right.
really
I want that.
I'm like, every time I see him, and that's probably been 3 times over this last year, and he always has something different to say. And I don't even know if he recognizes me or not. But when I'm done, and I even think I posted a video about it, I was like, he made me feel so good that
That's a
I'm,
great
and I don't even
example.
know, just a stranger, but I'm like, oh, and I really just want to go up and hug him and be like, thank you so much. Like, I really love your compliment.
So, I mean, and that's a great example because he obviously understands. I don't know how old he is, but he understands that it probably feels a lot better to go through life that way than to
Yes,
have your head down and just kind of feel, negative about things. So I next time that happens, let him know we did a podcast on thriving, yeah,
yes.
surviving, and we all want to know why he's like that and how he's like that. And it would be
Yes.
really interesting to come back on a future
That
podcast
that is true.
episode,
I will. Now I'll go
share his
specifically on
secret.
that route so I can find him,
Yeah,
because
but it's a
if
definitely
we know,
mindset. It's definitely mindset.
definitely mindset. He's one of those people who
Yeah.
wants to make others feel good. And I love those people in life. I think they're the ones that you're standing, and I see this all the time on TikTok, oh my gosh, I'm just one of those people who stands in line and starts talking to others. Or, the people on the airplane where they're like, they just start talking to you, and you just have, where I'm kind of like in my zone and I'm just trying to like read or focus or whatever. But I always get sat next to a chatty Cathy, which is great because it does make the ride go. And then it's really interesting to listen to what other people have to say.
Hmm.
But those kind of people, I'm always thankful to have those real extroverts in life, but not just being an extrovert, but also being like just that special person who loves to give compliments and loves to make others feel good.
Hmm.
Um, when I was in Mary Kay, I always bring this up, her up or the company, but she used to say, treat people as if they're wearing a sign around their neck that says, make me feel important or make me feel
Oh, I
special.
love that.
And so it's in one of her books, and but that's true because you know there's nothing wrong, there's no harm in giving somebody a compliment, like what,
Great.
but why don't we give more compliments to people? And when we give a compliment or get a compliment, I know I posted about this as well, how do we take it? I'm always like, oh, this old thing. Like if they compliment my
Right.
shirt, I'm like, oh, I bought it at a thrift
Just say
store.
thank you. Right.
I'm
It's
like,
always like,
just
just say
say thank
thank you.
you. I'm
Right.
like, why is that so hard? Like, why do we downplay the compliments? But yeah,
I
but
don't
that's a whole
know.
nother topic.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure why we just can't have more confidence in believing that we are special. I think a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of
Oh
people
yeah.
struggle with confidence, and you know, we talked about in one of our very first episodes about imposter syndrome.
Yes, and maybe that's part of it. Like,
So I don't know where that comes from. But I think if you, I kind of like the note that I made, and mentioned it before, that if you take small steps towards becoming more aware of your existence, health, wellness, mental health, physical health, everything, if you just slow down and just become more aware of your existence and maybe what's going on around you. I love
yeah,
it that old Bible verse, be still. you know, I don't know exactly how it goes. So
yeah.
sorry, but
Now you caught me off guard. I'm like,
right, but
oh,
basically it's like if you just slow down and quiet your life sometimes, you can
yeah,
start to see what changes you need to make.
right. Things will
Um,
come into perspective.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think be still and know that I'm God. I mean, I just think it's true. Like, if you slow down just a bit, you'll see, like, did I just run through fast food and throw food down my mouth because I'm in a hurry and I just ate junk? And, you can
yeah.
see what
You're
you,
just eating to fill the
right?
void, or you're to fill the hunger, but you're not even, and then you're eating so fast, or that's why they say don't watch TV when you eat, because you're
Right?
just eating without intention,
Or
and
did you,
you're just eating like, yeah, and
yeah, or
out of
did you just,
boredom and
or just run through the grocery store and not even like ask the nice person checking you out, like, how are you doing today? How's your day?
right.
Little things like you're saying, like just make little connections. It's amazing how it can make you feel better, yourself.
Oh,
Well, when we started our conversation, you mentioned about successful aging and longevity.
yeah.
And I just want to come bring us back to that for a second about like thriving at every stage of our life. And we have moved from how do you define successful aging? So,
Well, and you, I don't know, like in my study, like that was one of the topics. It's one of the things that I asked, because I did a mixed study as well. And so the qualitative portion talked about that. It's like, how do you view successful aging? Like, and there was a study, prior to mine, that's all it was on. And there were so many, there is no real definition for it. And it's a multitude of things depending on who you ask. And I think it also, now that I've done the research, it depends on what age level you're talking to. Are you talking the early 40s, 50s, you 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s? But it's a multitude of different, not topics or characteristics, but independence was a huge one, because I worked in a senior home where it was a continuing care retirement community. So you could come in as independent and then move with your levels of care. So then it was assisted living, and then memory care, and then the skilled nursing. But
oh no, we're having another freeze. We're gonna have to figure this out, so this doesn't happen every time. So, Marilyn will come back, and I'm not sure if she can hear me or not. But something that I wanted to share was Ro and Con kind of
living
set. Oh,
independently
there you are.
was,
You're back. You
oh,
froze
okay.
again.
Okay, that time I did notice that your face was just in one position.
We'll have to get this right. We will.
Okay.
We
Where did
will.
I
Be
cut off
patient with
at?
us. Well, you're talking about your work and the assisted living and how people progress from one stage to the next
Oh,
and how important independence is as we talk about thriving
yeah,
beyond surviving. And I mean, and I think you made a good point about it. At every age, there are different issues, and there are certain realities of aging that,
all right.
you know, when you do start to lose some sense of independence and you need to be using, assistive devices and you need more help in your life. So, I mean, yes, I understand there's like a reality to aging, but it doesn't have to necessarily be defined based on a disease model.
Right,
Uh,
no. And when I first started my research, like I knew that for my residents, it was I wanted to keep my independent living residents living independently as long as possible because that's what I want for myself. And I knew with physical activity, I was their lifestyle director. I did quit before I finished my degree. I knew that that was my goal there for them when I was there. I'm like, I wanted them to be able to be, successful with their aging and to live as long as possible. But like you said before, not just living, like obviously we'll still be alive, but to thrive.
to
Like,
thrive.
I
Right.
had one senior, she was 80 some years old. She was riding a scooter, like a little mini
Right.
motorcycle. And I was like, look at you go. And then here you have this other woman who, she's also an independent living, but she, after a surgery, was so fearful to let go of her walker.
Yeah, I mean,
After coming out of rehab, she didn't want to let that go. And I was like, it's not doing you any good. It's not going to help you.
yeah,
Like,
I mean, we kind of jumped, from PhD journey to aging, but I think as we think about thriving wherever you are in your life, because we
yeah,
don't necessarily know who's listening to our
right.
podcast. But I think the key is that it's mindset. It's like the gentleman that was so, good morning, Marilyn,
Yes.
the kind of like top of the morning to you, carpe
Yes.
diem, that attitude, it's mindset. I mean, it's mindset at age 20, or any age.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Any
mindset at any age. I happen to just listen, and I highly recommend it. Katie Ledecky's commencement speech at Stanford, just a
Oh, okay.
couple of weeks ago. Amazing commencement speech. And she talks about, her journey. And you really can thrive you can start at any age. And
Yeah.
it can start at age 10 and it can go into 100 and what, 100, the early hundreds.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten too much past that, but we will one day in terms of
Yeah.
longevity. But it's mindset, and uh, the challenge is how do you have a positive mindset when you are faced with hard things and obstacles and setbacks and things aren't going exactly the way you want or as fast as you want or whatever it is, things that are beyond your control. So, what do you think in terms of why do you think some people just have a
Can't.
positive mindset regardless?
And I always think like if I interview a lot of people and I'm like, if there was one magic answer, like to having that magic weight loss
Right.
pill, it's like if we could capture that, we would be so successful. If we could just capture what is it that makes you different from you, you know what I mean? Or you different from somebody else. I had a resident. I think she's 104 now. She's still living.
Awesome.
But I asked her, I said, "Well, what do you, attribute your success to? Like, you're amazing. Like, here you are." And she's a poet as well. And she like recited Casey at the Bat, and I almost went to tears because my grandmother used to recite it to us as kids.
Wait, what did she
And
recite? Say
Casey at Bat, Casey at the Bat.
Casey at that. I have to look that up.
It's like a old baseball one, and
Okay.
oh, it's good. But so when I was talking to her, I was like, well, how do you, here you are still thriving, at 104. And she's like, well, I really wish I could tell you what it was. But she goes, just stay happy, you know, just stay through everything, just keep smiling because, it's that if you're always mad and depressed and sad about stuff, she's not going to get better. So if you just do everything with a smile.
Yeah.
And then even in my study, I had as young as, because I think I took 60, no, 62 and older were mine.
Mhm.
My youngest was 60 something. My oldest was 94. And she was actually in the active, um, my active uh, intervention. 94 years old, and she was kicking tail to some of the other adults. So again, it is not, and I asked her the same question, like, why is she says staying active? Like
Hang on.
she has
Oh, we
always been
know
active.
we know physical activity has so many positive benefits to our cognitive health, our social emotional health, just everything physiologically. That's
Yeah.
why we went into the degree we did, health and
Yes.
performance,
Like,
health
and if,
promotion, building health
right.
promotion programs. And when we started this conversation today, you said we need to start the conversations earlier on. We need
I
to
think so.
explain how important this is for vitality and living longer
Yeah,
and
because
living
it's
longer
what
with
we
quality life.
do. Yeah, because it's what we do in our early ages
Hmm.
can affect us late in life. Like there was so
Yes.
much research that I was just kind of looking into, and some of it I used, some of it I didn't. But one of them was things that happen to us as children can affect our cognition late in life. An abused kid compared to a child that came, from a wonderful, loving home can have an effect. What we already know, like what we eat, our activity level,
But can I
what,
say one quick thing? I just
oh,
a
sure.
really interesting study because what you're talking about is trauma. And
Yes.
so what I just read something that really piqued my curiosity about how physical activity can rewire your brain
Mhm.
from trauma,
And
from helping you to kind of it literally, and I don't know how it does it because I'm not a neuroscience scientist or
not,
physician. I'm just learning about it.
I was
But
gonna say,
how
not yet, right? Aren't you doing
yeah, I
another?
am starting in August. I'm starting a
Yeah.
neuroscience program, but how the brain actually is that's a hard word,
Yeah. That's a tongue twister.
rewired based on physical activity. And so that's a really strong message to help people overcome trauma, especially people who've carried it from their childhood. That's a long time
That's a long
to
time for that
carry
to,
trauma. And we
yes,
want people to thrive. We want you to enjoy your life. We want you to feel good. We want you to live the best life you can live. And healing from trauma would be tremendous. So physical
right.
activity, so many benefits.
So many benefits. And like we say, we are dying by our own hands, right? By the things that we do, like we poor eating, smoking,
Yeah.
drinking, all these things. But we also have the power and the ability to heal ourselves with our hands, with physical activity, eating the right foods, saying no to, and I'm not saying that I live like this 100% pure life. I love me some French fries and
I love
I
French
have a
fries.
beer, you know. So I think but there's a thing called balance. And I
Balance,
think if we want,
moderation.
you're right, moderation. If we want to thrive in in all aspects of life, everything has to be with balance.
Yeah, and I like to come back to that thought about becoming more mindful about
Yes.
the things that you're doing. Like you say every week about celebrate the small wins, look at look at your life and maybe think of like one small thing that you could change. Maybe it's your lattes and you go, and I'm talking from personal experience, you go from milk to almond milk. I'm
Yeah,
not really sure. I don't know how much of a difference depending on how much you drink. But my point is that it doesn't have to be this like New Year's
right.
Eve huge resolution, you're going to change everything. Because that's really not how life works. It really
No.
works through small changes, getting back up when you fall back, you know, giving yourself some grace,
Yes.
asking other people for help. We talked about that last week. It's so important to ask people for help. There are people who are out there who want to help you. I just
Yeah.
met somebody the other day getting my new glasses, and he helps people through the 12-step program. He uses his
Oh,
own experiences to help people move from surviving to thriving, and he is so passionate about it. So whatever it is that you're dealing with today, there are people out there who want to help you. You just have to ask.
yeah, you just have to ask. And I think that's why so many of us go into that profession, whatever it may be. We obviously know people need help. That's why we have so many therapists. That's why we have doctors and lawyers and nutritionists, dietitian, whatever. That's why they're there because there is a need for it. look at our field, our the health and human performance field, or exercise science, exercise physiology. It's a huge field because in the medical field, because there's a need for it. And I know I chose my profession because I was a my own like my own story, my weight loss story is what put me into this field. It's why I left makeup. That's why I left Mary Kay to go into the fitness industry because it was something that I helped myself. And I knew at that point, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to help these people. And, and I love it. And I haven't stopped. And that started back in 2007. Like,
I remember you shared that a couple episodes ago, and I love that too, how you just knew, even though there are even naysayers out there,
right,
you knew in your heart this is the path you wanted to take. But you said something very interesting. I mean, we have so much, and I'm going to kind of put this back for you because and ask you this, like, we have so much information out there. We have books, we have internet, we have social media. The messaging is out there. We have Ozempic, we have shots now. We have
right.
pills, we have supplements, we have everything.
Yeah,
And yet, as a society, we are more unhealthy than we've ever been. We have epidemic levels of cardiovascular disease, metabolic diseases, stress, anxiety, even suicide rates. I mean, we have all these mental health, physical health, social, emotional health issues in our country. So then, what are we doing wrong with
right,
the wellness messaging? Why, maybe we really need to focus on thriving and what thriving means and not put all the pressure on the dieting and you know,
right.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think a lot of it is because we are in a nation of we want it, want it, want it. We want it all and we want it right now. So I want to eat my cheeseburger, but I want to be skinny. So I'm going to take a magic pill or whatever, like Ozempic. Hey, whatever weight loss pill
I'm not
out there.
judging.
Right. I'm not
I'm just
judging. Right.
saying there's lots,
Same
I'm not
thing.
judging that. I'm just saying there's lots of options out there to
Right.
behave for behavior change. And
Yes.
yet we know if you look at I don't know how to say it correctly, but the numbers, let's just say the numbers,
Right.
we are at staggering numbers for health
Oh.
problems, chronic illness in our country.
Oh yeah, and back when I was getting my master's back in 2010, that's what my whole thing. I started a nonprofit because it was called Fit Families USA. I still haven't, don't do anything with it now, but it was fighting the obesity epidemic
So
because
what are we
back
doing?
then it was bad.
So that's
I
my
think
question to you. What are
yeah.
we doing wrong?
Well, I think we have a lot of miscommunication or a lot of confusing information, right? You're being thrown, if you watch social media, you're being thrown, this is good for you. Eggs are good. No, eggs are bad.
Right?
Cardio is good. Cardio is bad. Lift weights, don't, there's so much stuff that people don't know what to follow. It's so confusing. Are basing it on science and the diets? I mean, that's what I used to research. I have a wall full of books just for whatever. But people got to realize it's individual. Not every diet's going to work for you. Not every pill is going to work for you. Not every, so you have to, cipher through the mess and to figure out what it is that is right for you and for your
Right.
body, your lifestyle, whatever it is, and stop looking at your neighbor and be like, well, she's doing this. How come
But do
it's
you
not
but do you feel
individual?
like it's the dangling carrot and people are if they're only focused on that type of path, that type of journey, are they
Yeah,
ever going to achieve it? Or do if we start a conversation, and this is why we want to do this episode today, and we talk about thriving and what thriving means. And thriving means finding small things in your life that are enjoyable. Maybe it's a short little walk. Maybe it's you like to go birding. Maybe you want to paint. I mean, there's lots of things you know,
yeah,
if we start a conversation about how do you thrive, how do you get in touch with what brings you happiness and joy, then don't you think the other things start to fall into place as well
yeah.
in terms of your health?
Absolutely, because I think you have to look at it like as a whole picture, right? Like I want, because if you just say, I want to thrive, okay, well, what does that mean? And well, I want to be happy and I want to be successful. Well, what does successful mean? It's like you got to keep digging into all these points.
Right.
It can't be done in just probably
Not
one conversation.
sustainable. It's not
Right.
sustainable. And that's why
No,
we
see,
have so much illness.
right, because they're looking at one thing like I just want this. It's like look at medicine or pharmaceuticals. Okay, you have heartburn. Okay, I have GERD, my old lady disease is what I call it. I have really bad indigestion, heartburn, indigestion. So I can take this pill, which I'm supposed to take every day, and I don't. But when you take that pill, then you got this side effect and this side effect. Well, this could now cause long-term whatever. So
Mhm.
I'm like, and that's where the problem is. We're looking for that short, quick fix, not realizing that all these other complications might come of it. But that's all I want. I want to be like, I want to be skinny. So I want to hurry and take a shot so I can be skinny. Oh, well, now I have this and now I have that. So
Yeah,
what is your,
I
yeah,
don't think that path of like trying to be skinny, I don't think that is necessarily a path towards true fulfillment or true
no.
self-actualization. I think if we look at all this, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just one little voice in the whole conversation on health promotion. But I think if we just take a step back and we start to say to our listeners and to people that we work with, you know, I always like to say to people, what did you love to do when you were a kid? It's such a
Yeah,
simple question. What did you love to do when you were a kid? I love to play outside and play in the water. I am still that same person as an adult.
yes,
But maybe just ask yourself that. What did you love to do as a kid? And then ask yourself, are you doing that in your adult life? Maybe as a kid
right.
you love to play soccer. Are you on a soccer league? I mean, ask yourself that and start with some self-reflection. Slow down a little bit and try to, every week our episodes we try to build on the conversation from the week before. And we have an episode about finding balance. So you
Yeah.
really can't have a conversation on thriving beyond surviving without understanding that you need to find some balance in your life,
Yeah.
that you need to understand how to overcome obstacles and
Yeah.
that you're doing fine. We just want you to do better.
Yeah. And I love that question about bringing it back to your childhood. Like, what did you like? There was a movie that it talked about that. Well, what did you, before you had or became in this career, what did you really want to enjoy? And most people are like, well, I wanted to be a chef, but I went into the corporate world or vice
Right.
versa,
Go be a
right?
chef.
Yeah, like now it is, and I've seen a lot of so I didn't go to college right out of high school. I dabbled, thought I was going to, follow in the footsteps of my grandmother, owning restaurants and a catering company. And some of my friends talked me into joining the Air Force. So that's what I did. Thank God for it because it was so wonderful of an experience. But most of my friends that did go to college, they're on now getting another degree because they're not in love with what they did anymore.
Right.
So now it's like they're opening their second life and doing what they really wanted to do. So I was telling my daughter when she was getting hers, I said, wait until you know. Like, let's not blow, $50,000 on college if you're not sure that's what you want. Wait until you really know. And so I didn't even start college until I think I was 32. But
No, I
at
think
that time, I knew what I wanted.
that's the whole mindset shift when you talk about thriving,
Right.
Maslow's self-actualization and finding purpose and passion and through enjoying life, enjoying your work. It's a whole different way of living.
Right. There's a
And
cliche,
it takes
right?
time. Would you say?
There's that cliche, right? If it's not a job, it doesn't feel like a job if you love it, or if
I
you love
know.
it, it doesn't feel like a
I
job.
always, it's so funny you should say that because I've done a lot of things in my life, different research positions, and I did not like it. It just, I wasn't like super passionate about it. And I was always like, oh, I really admire people that really are at that point. And then when I went back into this program, I was like, wow, I finally get it for me. That was exactly where I needed to be. And I understand it now. And doing this podcast with you is super fun. So I don't know. We've been a little bit all over the place today. I think
Oh,
but it
and we're
was
running out of
fun.
time.
I enjoyed it. Hopefully, we come across as thriving today.
Yes. Hopefully
We
you
like to
got a message out of this.
we always like to wrap up with some strategies. I know we they were kind of intertwined in our whole conversation today, but I just wrote down a couple allow time for self-reflection. And we talked about that, slowing down, being mindful,
Yes.
reaching out to others for help. We always, that's really important. Marilyn always says, take the small steps, celebrate the small wins.
Yeah.
And I'm giving you time to think about your big,
Ah,
uh, I wrote this one down. Learn what triggers you. I think that's
ooh,
important because that means that you're allowing something out in the environment to take away your joy. And it's important to have control and not let that happen. We
for
talked
sure.
about the importance of physical activity, so important in everybody's life at any stage of life. And now,
We are going to finish with we are not just getting by, we are going to live with intention and purpose.
I love that.
So let's just live our lives like we're not just floating along and letting somebody else control, the puppet. Take control and live with purpose. Yeah.
I love
I
it. It's
think that was
perfect.
yeah.
And then you have a little homework. We need to find out why
Oh yes.
Mr.
I'm
Mr.
gonna go
in
find
a
Mr.
great mood
Cowboy
is so
Hat Man.
happy.
I'm gonna do my best to try to find him and see what his more about his story.
Yeah, so
Hopefully he'll let me interview him.
that's right. So you have to come back and listen to us next week
Yes.
because hopefully we'll have that information.
Yeah.
And I think next week we were going to talk about the gift of learning,
Oof.
and we were going to focus on like what we learned in the doctoral journey, like new things that just really maybe even strategies that we learned and science techniques we learned. And so I think
So
that's
much.
what we're thinking about for next week. So any other thoughts?
No, just
You you survived
please,
vacation.
yeah, yeah. Let's try to get out of that survival mode, learn how to thrive, do everything with a smile, and obviously that'll help us age more successfully. And then just stay tuned, keep giving us your feedback. We love your feedback. We love that people are listening. The name is getting out there. If there's another topic that
Yes.
you're interested in, let us know, and we will do our research and definitely have it on our show. So,
Excellent. All right. Well, time always flies by when you're having fun,
yes, this is a
and
great one.
we'll see everybody next week.
All right, bye. Thank you for
Bye.
listening.
Thank you. Bye.